Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 26th day of Godot Jam. And in this interview is going to be something special. We have our guest for today is Jonas Tyroller, so probably all of you know him already. And of course, besides trying to convert him to Godot, which we'll do a little, just so we will focus on what what are you going to do after you create your game with your engine of choice, in this case Godot for most of us, but living the indie dream. And Jonas is already living, being an independent game developer, and we'll go into more details how his routine goes and how he makes games and more. So if you're interested in this is going to happen right now. By the way, let me know if you have problems with the microphone, if you have with me hearing me or hearing Jonas, because we don't want to miss any detail. Okay, let's get going. Hello, Jonas.
Hi, am I on the screen now?
Yeah,
Awesome.
you're on the screen now. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
thanks a
please,
lot for
okay.
having me. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks
it.
for accepting the interview. We already have had a couple of guests, and you're expecting more. But yeah, you're very special because you started a couple of years ago. And for anyone that's been following Jonas, I remember the first videos. Not that I've been following you from the first videos, but I watched the first videos. Um, yeah, you started basically from nothing. By the way, it seems like someone says my volume is a little low, though it's maxed. So probably I'm not speaking in the in the microphone. That's my problem. So I'll try to speak more in the
Is
microphone.
my volume fine? Chat, test. Everything fine?
Yeah, I hope it's
Okay.
okay. So yeah, tell us a little about yourself. Tell us how you started, because probably people know already about yourself. So tell us a little how you started and what is your
I
motivation.
started the YouTube channel like 3 years ago, but it's not entirely true. I think that I started completely from scratch because obviously I've been making games before that for a very long time. I've been making games with Game Maker pretty much since I was a young teenager. And then I guess 3 or 4 years ago, I decided that I want to do this full time as an indie game developer, which is when I started my YouTube channel. With one of the main incentives being that it allows me to promote my games, but also like I really like sharing what I learn and helping other developers. So yeah, that's kind of what I do on my channel.
Yeah, and also creating toasters as controllers. So can you tell us how that went? Because I think I saw a hack in that video. I saw that you used those cards like to help you. You used more than 3 times actually, and I was like, wait wait a second. So yeah,
Yeah, so for the toaster build, basically my dad did all of the difficult things for me, and I still wanted to do the video somehow. So that was sort of the I didn't want to be dishonest about it and be like, oh, look at that, I did it all myself. So that's kind of a humorous way I wanted to show that, I guess.
yeah, yeah. But I was like,
Yeah.
wait a second, wasn't the last one used already? And they're like, so now I'm gonna use the last one.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny.
Okay. Yeah, happy you enjoyed it. Awesome.
Yeah. So, what do you think about Godot Jam? I mean, you already host Wowie Jam, and I think it's the third installment you hosted already, or already a
Mm-hmm.
couple of them. So, what do you think this newcomer jam? What do you think about it?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you reached out to me even when you were planning the thing, asking if I want to promote it or something. And to be honest, I wasn't too optimistic about it. I thought, this is not gonna work. Like, this sounds like a very specific niche audience. You know, you're kind of targeting people who want to switch engines and who then are also willing to maybe try a new engine. So that for me felt like a very, very small niche audience. And yeah, I guess that's also why I didn't help you with promoting your gem. But I'm very pleased to see that it did very well. Like um, over 700 people joined. That is extremely
Yeah.
extremely good for something that I think is such a niche gem, and I'm really surprised you managed to pull that off. So big props for that. Congrats.
Thank you. I had help, so we have a lot of partners involved. Yeah, cool. I think game jams in general are really great for the community, as well as people learning, creating friends, and learning how to create games in general. So yeah, if you follow Jonas, also join his jam when he makes it, because it's an awesome experience as well. So one interesting thing that we did a couple of weeks ago, Jonas challenged me to recreate a mechanic from his game. By the way, it's in the description, both the mechanics, so you can play it live, and also his game on Steam. But yeah, it's basically the movement in Will You Snail, and I want Jonas to rate it now from 1 to 10. What's his opinion about my implementation? By the way, it was only 1 week, so keep that in mind.
Should I just rate it from my memory, or should I go rewatch it? Like, how should we do this? I think, as far as I remember, it was pretty good. You even did it in 3D, and you recreated the trail and even the glowy effect when you double jump in midair. So yeah, I think from what I can tell, you did a pretty great job.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. No, the interesting part is that I was just learning Godot, like when I created that.
Okay.
Because I learned Godot like 2 months ago or something. I discovered it, and that's what I'm trying to say to people. Well, it's, if you know already an engine, it's quite easy to adapt to Godot in this case. And yeah, it was quite easy to do the mechanic from your game, of course. Probably I wanted also to see a little the AI prediction, but that would probably have taken much more time. So I said, okay, yeah, let's just do
probably.
Let's just do the challenge.
Yeah.
Make sure it's good, and then, and also I did some tricks. It's not like 100% okay, but it works. And some people found some bugs, but I'm not gonna disclose them. So you can check yourself the game and see the bugs.
Nice. So did you publish the
it's
controls as a demo?
Yeah, it's on itch. It's actually on this stream. On this stream's description. We have the
cool.
You can directly, because
I'll hit play 1 sec.
Yeah, it's in browser. So yeah, everyone, if you're interested, you can play it right now. It's in this video's description. So yeah, you can check it. But yeah, it's quite it's just the mechanics. So
nice. It's even more momentum based than the original. Like in the original Will You Snail, basically the snail stops moving right away and starts moving right away when you press a button. But this is this works as well. And it also has a little bit of jiggle. Very nice. Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah, and also the jiggle thing. I wanted to ask you how you made it. I made it with the animation system in Godot, and that's quite powerful, because I learned it like in a couple of minutes, like half an hour, and then I started to make this, and it just worked.
In GameMaker, I usually do a lot with procedural animations, because GameMaker for the longest time did not have an animation system like Unity. Now it has, but when I got started, it didn't. So pretty much all of my animations are completely code-based, which actually comes with a couple of advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are that they feel pretty fluid and react to everything you're doing in a very dynamic way, which I like. Disadvantages that they kind of require a lot more trial and error to get right, I guess.
Yeah. But also probably they adjust to the environment, or to like if you fall, like for example, like it adjusts to the speed and so on and so forth. So
exactly, yeah.
I also applied this for falling. I did a procedural animation, because it's in the code, the stretching. It's not with the animator.
So basically, for everybody who doesn't know, by the way, my background with Godot is I tried it for like 1 day for a video, made a very quick video about it, which surprisingly got a lot of views, which I did not expect at all. The cursed thumbnail with the Godonus. So I tried it only for a very short amount of time. So I basically also have a lot of questions for you, I guess. Like, what do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of Godot after like working with it for 2 months?
Well, I mean, I also see a lot of people, for example, in the comment section, and also like with what I've interacted up until this point. And of course, there are pros and cons, like to every engine. But I would say I mean, it's very simple to use, and I don't think like the node-based system it's too hard to grasp, like comparing to Unity or Unreal. And for most games and for small teams, I think it's a great engine. But in the end, as a person that used Unity for more than 6 years, knows about game development, I would say that when you reach a certain level of knowing how engines work, you don't actually really care about what the engine offers, but you care more about what the engine restricts you. Like, for example, in case of Unity or Unreal, at certain thresholds, you need to start pay money. Or in case of Game Maker, you start to pay money, I think, directly, or if you want to export the game to multiple platforms. So yeah, this kind of like having Godot, basically you own everything when you release a game. And then yeah, you have some downsides. Oh, you cannot export directly to consoles and stuff. But the freedom that it offers, I think that's on another level than just the technicalities. But I also think yeah, GDScript is very easy to learn, and the engine is very easy to learn. So I don't think that's the problem.
I think another big thing that kind of differentiates game engines is kind of how fast certain things are to do. There are two engines I use. I use Game Maker and Unity. And generally speaking, you can do pretty much almost everything in both engines. The main difference is just how difficult is it to do and how long does it take you. For example, in Unity, almost everything's running, or usually you code things in a way where almost everything's running in the physics engine, and that gives you a lot of useful tools like raycasts, etc., etc. And then in GameMaker, on the other hand, you usually don't use the physics system, and that means you don't have things like raycasts, and then you have to find workarounds if you need something like that. So you can still do the same things.
Yeah.
They just take a different amount of time. So is there something in Godot that you think is faster than in different engines, or that takes longer than in different engines?
Yeah, I would say I don't know. Well, for example, the basic as Sosa says, he implemented his game like in a very short time, and I also feel like you can prototype quite fast. And I've heard stories of people prototyping stuff in Godot and then moving to Unity to implement the full version, which is kind of like it breaks my heart because you can implement the full version in Godot as well. But it offers, yeah, for example, like some features that are not in Unity or Unreal. The fact that you can animate every property in the inspector. So that's crazy. You can hook up every property in the animator and start like to do weird stuff. And yeah, also now with the Godot 4 release, we're going to have proper 3D support. It already, you can do 3D games, but it will be able to do much more with that. And yeah, it's an overall good engine. I would say probably like if someone is already familiar with a different workflow, for example, like the Unity workflow, they'll have a little harder time because they'll try to just put the Unity workflow inside Godot, and that doesn't work. And the other way around. So it's basically more like learning different workflows. But if you come with like an open mind approach to the engine, then it's going to be fine. Like that's how I started. Not trying to push Unity in the engine and see, oh, it doesn't work now.
Yeah, I guess another big advantage of Godot that people keep mentioning is that it's also quite lightweight. Like it runs on almost every computer. And I have to say, like the latest Unity update, I feel like everything got even slower. Like when I start a new Unity project or I open up Islanders or something, it takes so long. It's incredible. And it doesn't get better. Like the updates only make it worse. It feels like. Yeah.
I and it's also not the updates, because people, I mean, like people that are developing games for a long time, they use 2018 version and so old versions. They don't upgrade. But what, I don't know if you saw like what happened to Buildbox engine. That's crazy.
I've never heard of that actually. No.
So I never heard as well. But one week ago or 2 weeks ago, Kenny, Kenny, he does like really cool assets on. So Kenny tweeted about like this engine that's no code approach, Buildbox, and they were okay engine at some point, but now they decided to do this free tier where they take like 70% of the revenue you make with the game.
70%?
70%, yeah. Yeah, 70%. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like, okay, if they made that and people that are already stuck with the workflows of that engine and something like that, and knowing, oh, for my next game, they will take 70% of my revenue, and they put it like, they don't mention like we on the pricing, they say like it's default pricing, and then you have to go inside the website and like search for the what's the default, and then they say 70%. So it's quite wrong from yeah, and this can happen to Unity as well, like they can paywall stuff, and I've also heard like the game maker
Yeah, sure, it can happen to any engine, I guess, but I guess if you do something like that, you'll definitely scare off a big portion of your user base. Like we have this luxury where basically we have all of these different engines to choose from, and if one of them decides to screw us over, we can still go to a different engine. So there is that natural competition in the game engine space with alternatives, which I think is a very good thing, because that is exactly what prevents companies from doing scummy things like that. If we don't like what they do, we will go somewhere else. It's that simple.
Yeah, but they also, like, for example, I worked in a company that used Unity, and if you have like a lot of your systems based on the engine, even if they start doing like the scammy practice, you cannot do that much, because as GD Quest mentioned, this conversion in a company might mean like $500,000 for a couple of developers to transition to Godot, for example. So that's quite a huge deal. It's not so easy if you already have
sure.
the workflows.
Sure. I mean, you don't want to transition during a project, but I mean, at the point where a company is taking 70% of revenue, it will definitely be cheaper to transition. So,
yeah, no, I don't recommend the build box in that case. No, I think. But what is your experience with Game Maker? I mean, you used it for a couple of years now. Do you think it's a solid engine? Do you think your next game is going to be still in Game Maker, or?
Yeah, just as every engine, Game Maker comes with advantages and disadvantages. And I think the fact that I've been using it for over 10 years, it says something probably. I mean, I definitely like it for prototyping. Like, just like Godot, it seems to be very, very fast, especially for prototyping 2D stuff. Main disadvantage of Game Maker is that it can't really do 3D. I guess in theory it can, but in practice it really can't. But yeah, so I like Game Maker, but I also noticed that there are differences to Unity. For example, for bigger projects, I think I kind of prefer Unity, even though it's so much clunkier and slower. For bigger projects, it just feels like it makes a little more sense to go with Unity, because it's easier to port to different platforms. It has such a big community. There are solutions for pretty much every problem you can find. There are so many add-ons and plugins. It's very, very scalable. You can do pretty much whatever you want to. And on top of that, it's also way easier to keep your project clean. In Game Maker, I find it very confusing. Once you get to a certain project size, like, Game Maker gets more and more confusing, even if you do a great job sorting all of your stuff into the correct folders. Game Maker just feels a little more messy, because you need to basically have everything in a tiny little sidebar. And in Unity, you have a couple more options with how you want to organize your assets, and I feel like that helps with keeping things clean. So both, I'll think I'll use both Unity as well as Game Maker in the future again.
Yeah. No, Unity is still like a solid engine, because they kind of like converted a lot of indie game developers, and like you see tutorials like dropping every single day with how to begin with Unity, and that's like a joke, like how to begin with Unity you actually need, but they're still uploading videos every single day. That's kind of crazy. But yeah, in the end, it depends on what you exactly want out of that engine.
Yeah.
More or less, like if you want. Depends on the team size as well. I don't know if you worked with a team in Game Maker, for example, and if it supports like a couple of people working on the same project.
Yeah, that's another advantage of Unity is simply that a lot of people know how to use it, so it's easy to collaborate on projects. Game Maker, you can collaborate with multiple people, of course. That shouldn't be an issue, but I simply don't know anybody who can use that engine. So, yeah, that's why I have never collaborated on any Game Maker games.
I see. Okay.
What can I ask you another question
Yeah,
about
yeah.
like the node system in Godot? Because as far as I've understood, that's sort of one of the main selling points of Godot, or one of the main things that differentiates it from other engines. Like, how does that node-based system work, and what are the, in your opinion, what are the advantages and disadvantages that come with that?
Well, I think one. So basically, what the node system is like in Unity, you have prefabs, but in Godot, like if you have you can have everything basically a prefab. So the scene is a prefab, the player is a prefab, everything is a prefab, and you can put the nodes one inside another, like how you'd put prefabs. But since everything is a prefab, basically you can put a scene in the player. So you can have the player as the top level, and then put the scene underneath it. Though I don't know what that purpose is, but for example, some use cases for this, if you have like the player, you can open the player separately. Like how would you in Unity would have the inspector for the prefab, but the advantage is you can actually run that scene. And you can test in isolation, like the movement of the player or some different features of the player. So that's kind of like one advantage. The other advantage is they provide like nodes that have different functionalities. For example, one node that I think is really useful is the timer node. And instead of writing code, for example, for cooldowns or for timer-based events or for different purposes, instead you put a timer node, you set it up like in the inspector, and this allows for more declarative programming because you enter in a node, you enter like, for example, the player, and then you see okay, this player has the weapon cooldown, this player has like the jump trigger cooldown and stuff like that, and you already see them there. So it's much more easier to see than just go into the code and figure it out. And also Godot provides a nice way to connect the nodes together. Like they have like signals, which is similar to events, but in Unity you have Unity events, you have C# events, you can implement events your own. So it's kind of like a messy because it allows you to do a lot of different events in a lot of different ways. And if you have a team and someone makes in one way and then the other one makes in a different way, then it gets spaghetti code much faster.
Mm-hmm.
So by having one that's one fix like for this, the signals, it lessens like the need for this spaghetti code. And also like the language GDScript does allow you to it forces you to indent the lines correctly, because I've seen Unity code where people don't really care about indentation and it gets quite spaghetti very fast.
So that sort of does this node-based system also encourage you to kind of write reusable code? Like it kind of sounds like you have a very modular system where that allows you to also do a lot of things without having to jump right into code every single time you want to change something.
I feel it provides this modularity in much more nicer way, because you can mix and match basically different nodes much easier. For example, let's say you have a weapon node and you can put it on the player and you can put it on the enemy, and you can easily move stuff around, and it just works. Because I remember when Unity tried to implement initially the nested prefabs, they were a mess. They were unusable. Now it's better. It's much better, but still, with Godot, it's much more. It's much more easy to use in that way. And one advantage also that the nodes in Godot has, that in Unity is kind of like a mess how you do it, is you can actually have control over the script execution order. So in Unity, to have control over the script execution order, you have to go into some settings. It's quite messy system, and you get all of the scripts and also the built-in scripts, and you have this massive list. And if you have dynamic objects, you just don't know what are they gonna. And it's also a problem in Unity. But here in Godot, you have a fixed way of knowing what's gonna execute first. So yeah, you can have a lot of different advantages with this. And
So does it just execute from top to bottom, or how does it
no,
execute?
it executes from inside out, kind of. That's what I found out. So like the
Okay.
smallest kind of node, and then moves out, out, out. But it's yeah, at least it's predictable, and I like this because you can even predict like how dynamic nodes. Yeah, yeah. Also, Chef Fair mentions animation player. Yeah, animation player is another node that you can use to rig animations quite easily. So yeah, everything is basically. So a lot of people that come to Godot, they start to implement some features, and then they realize like, oh, this feature was implemented that was in a node actually. Like they also
So
have
everything's just a node.
yeah,
Okay.
everything is just a node. They have a node that keeps you like if you want to make a third person controller, they have like a camera, and it automatically collides with walls and keeps like the camera from getting inside walls, and puts the camera with an offset to the player. So it's quite easy because you don't have to implement that yourself. It's already there. So there are a lot of nodes, and of course, if you start to learn, everything is going to be messy because it's a lot of stuff. But on the other hand, you still need to keep track of them because you might reinvent the wheel at some point. So
And as a Godot user, have you already like found any disadvantages of Godot, or have you already seen anything you're not quite happy with?
well, I mean, some things, as people say, might not you might not get fixes for some certain things because yeah, the community is not so big, and in Unity basically you can search for anything, and mostly everything is already made by someone. In Godot, there are a lot of creators already that are putting tutorials a lot, but it's still not there yet. I hope that with the release of Godot 4, more people will come forth and put even more tutorials and support the community more. But with that said, it's still good because I managed to go around these issues, and in some places it shows where because the team is very small, and it shows like some features are working but are not perfect yet. So some features are nicer, but could be even nice from a user point of view. Like the user experience is not there yet.
I see.
Yeah. So
Like one thing I'm also wondering about is if engines sort of always start out as these very lightweight systems and then over time just get clunkier and clunkier. So do you think there's a chance that might happen to Godot as well at some point, or do you think there's just something fundamentally different about their design that prevents that from happening?
well, I know from Unreal, for example. So Unreal started like a big chunk because they had the engine, and they decided, okay, now let's make this public. Yeah, and they had the full engine with a lot of features that were not needed for people, and now they are starting to take features out and put them into different plugins. And in Godot is a little different because they do it the other way around. Basically, you have plugins for a lot of stuff. So you have the asset library, which is not like the asset store because everything is free. So you have like, if you want like a voxel based thingy, then you just download this asset and you have it. If you want another feature, you just download another plugin and you have it. So it's a plugin based system, more or less. So this is kind of where the development is going. They don't want to put much stuff in it.
Okay, I see. That makes sense.
So
Cool. I'll turn on some lights real quick because it's getting dark here, and then we can move on. 1 sec.
yeah.
All right. Oh my
Whoa, whoa, that's super cool light.
That's too bright.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, cool. So I also I mean do you have more questions about Godot? Because
I think that's it from my questions for now.
Okay, cool. I want to ask you about how is it to be living, because from a lot of people's point of view, you're living the indie dream. Like, yeah, you're on your own. You're making games. You're having a fun time. At least what's on the camera. And between us YouTubers, that's not really the truth all the time. So I want to put our best faces when the camera is on. But how is it like to be living the indie dream?
Yeah, so one interesting thing about the indie dream is that you actually never really feel like you completely made it. Like when I got started, I kind of thought that when I have 1K subs and my first successful game, in this case Islanders or something, I thought once I have that, like I'll be set. Everything's gonna be fine. Will be way more relaxed. That typical you've made it feeling basically, but that never settles in. So it always feels like everything's still so risky, and everything still feels like it could go downhill every second. Like it really it keeps you on the edge of your seat. Even if you're already living that indie game dev dream, you have to kind of keep fighting to keep it. Yeah. So I think that's one thing you don't realize on the way to getting there.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still something like making the games that you want to make, and you yourself like having like control over your life and stuff like that. So most people are stuck in daily jobs and they do game dev as a hobby. I did this for a lot of years, and it's really hard, like when you already put a lot of hours into someone else's business and then you come home, you're usually tired and you cannot work on your game because you're tired. So but yeah, you have money on the other side. But what do you suggest? Like, should people that feel like really motivated, should they start like to pursue this dream, or where is more like a lie? Because I've saw some videos, I don't remember if it was from Thomas Brush or somebody else, like, is indie game dev a lie? I think there is this kind of title.
Yeah, I made a video about that with Thomas Brush as well. Maybe that's the video you're talking about. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there are a lot of people talking about this. So is it a lie, or is it something that people that really want it, that really are up for the grind, because it's a grind in the end, should pursue, or they shouldn't pursue?
Well, it's well, statistically speaking, not everybody can succeed, but individually speaking, everybody can succeed. That's kind of the thing, I think, with game development as well as with a lot of other things. So it's tricky. I think you should not get into game development for the wrong reasons. If you enjoy game development, if you enjoy making games, then obviously you should make games. And if you don't enjoy it, then you shouldn't. Probably the decision should probably simply depend on if you enjoy doing it and not what you hope to get out of it. Of course, it's okay to kind of work towards that goal, but it doesn't make sense to work towards that goal if it's not something you enjoy in the first place.
But I mean, if you enjoy game development, right? But you can go to like a AAA company and work on Cyberpunk and do like overtime, or go to a mobile company and have like a decent work-life balance, even good work-life balance, but still you're making this mobile game. So there are a lot of ways, but to make your own games, it's a little different. Yeah, so I would say it's a little different because it's your dream, like, not in the end working for some other games. You're creating other people's games, not yours.
Yeah, but both is completely fine. Like, some people enjoy working on a smaller subset of the game. Like, some people enjoy working on just the movement system of characters in Assassin's Creed or something like that. And others enjoy doing everything. And it really depends on what you enjoy doing, where you fit best. And also, of course, depends a bit on how much risk you're willing to take, right? If you're in a situation where you're okay with taking a lot of risk, then if you want to, you can go full-time into game development. If not, then maybe you should get a job instead. So it depends on a lot of factors that should go into that decision, probably.
Yeah, it's probably similar to creating a regular startup, because yeah, you still need like high risk tolerance, and every second initially you might fail. And I mean, you when you started you just finished studies, right?
Sorry, what?
When you started the channel, your journey, you finished studies then, or?
Yeah, I studied game design at HDW Berlin, but I actually didn't finish my studies. I quit
Ah,
halfway through.
okay, but I mean, like you didn't were you're not employed before, or you just started your own.
No, no, no. I did an internship in a somewhat bigger game studio, something like 20 people, and they were super friendly. It was a very, very nice atmosphere there. They were super friendly to me. But I just didn't realize that. I realized that it's not what I want to do. So that's kind of, I think, also what pushed me into the indie direction even more.
Yeah, because it took me 10 years of working for other people to make this leap to to go into like in the game development, and also like making game development videos and stuff like this. But it's not an easy decision, so this is why I'm asking, because it's really hard. You risk stuff, like you literally have to put something on the table. You just not can say, oh, I'm gonna succeed and that's it.
Yeah.
Because
So how has it been like for you? You then? What's your journey?
yeah, it's I had like your usual typical Finnish studies, being an employee. Luckily, I found Unity jobs, but they're not game dev related. I found in other sectors, and for 3 years in one part, 4 years in other, so 7 years total of Unity. But yeah, it was not fulfilling. I mean, yeah, you get some money out of it, but you waste time, and in the end, when you reach 60 years old, 70 years old, when you don't have that much energy, you think, what did I do with my life? And so you have to put yourself like in that perspective, like in 20 years, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, what are you going to say to yourself if you didn't do anything to change something that you don't like, kind of? And I didn't
Yeah.
like where I was at. So this is why I kind of said, okay, now is the time to do something different. And of course, yeah, it's much easier if you don't have a lot of responsibilities. Because if you start like getting like a house loan and children, and then it's not that easy to do this jump, like to start like the pursuit of indie dream in one way or another. It's much more complex.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
hoping for the best for you as well then.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a tough journey, but it's really interesting, and the rewards are really high, because yeah, you interact with like how I'm interacting with a lot of awesome people along the way that are like-minded. Because yeah, in a typical company, not all people are like-minded, but here you can select which people you want to interact with, and you say, okay, now I'm interacting with people that I think that I can learn from them, and yeah, I can provide value to them as well. Yeah, very nice.
Awesome. Do you have any more questions? Or
Yeah.
should we? I guess we can also take some questions
Yeah,
from
yeah,
chat
yeah.
later on when you're done. But yeah.
Yeah,
if
no,
you
no.
have
Let's
more, then keep going.
Yeah, no. Actually, in the other interviews, we also like intertwined questions from the chat as well, and yeah, we can definitely. So, did you find something interesting?
No, but we also didn't ask for questions yet. So I guess we can make a little question break. And if you have any questions, simply post them in chat now.
Yep. So if you have questions to Jonas, yeah, please do post them in the chat right now. So yeah, go in the chat, post your questions. We're gonna try to cut. We're gonna try to cut them one by one. So, by the way, one question: when are you going to release Will You Snail?
Hopefully this year. Like I'm making good progress. Pretty much done. Obviously it's been pretty much done since 2 years now, but it's a different kind of pretty much done now. So I'm confident that it's almost done. What's your
Okay.
favorite type of cheese? Excellent question. That depends on the context. I like mozzarella on pizza, and I don't know any other kinds of cheese in English, so
Okay. Now, can I add one thing? Do you also like pineapple on the pizza?
yeah.
Okay, I also like it. Okay, the missing bracket asks, are you Milk Gang?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
of course. Who isn't? Is there
Or
any
Orange Juice
game
Gang?
developer on YouTube who isn't Milk Gang?
Maybe Orange Juice Gang. Someone. Um, are you planning to slug? Slug?
Ah, Jan asked, are you planning to slug? Yeah, true, obviously. And here, an actual real question. Woo! Round of applause. How is the work-life balance as an indie dev? That depends on. It's different for everybody, I think. For me, it's sometimes I have a good grasp on my work-life balance. Sometimes I don't. Like one of the biggest things I struggle with is just all of these little side distractions when I should really be working on Will You Snail. And instead of being productive, I get distracted with emails and Discord and Twitter. And then at the end of the day, I was like, I worked all day long, but I didn't get anything done. Yeah, so that's like the biggest issue, messing up my work-life balance at the moment. Everybody has kind of different struggles, I guess. Like, how's your work-life balance like?
My?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I would say. I tried planning a lot of times. It didn't work for me. So I realized maybe planning is not for me. So I know what I need to do, and I'm trying to do that. But also sometimes I end up in this loop doing stuff and neglecting the free time. And I was listening to this podcast. People were saying like you need to plan for your free time, like to go outside and like do some walks and do some exercise, and kind of neglected that for a couple of months, and that's not going too well. So yeah, people who are watching this, don't neglect your like health and like eating properly and making sport, or even taking walks every single day and going into the nature, because it really definitely helps. Don't just sit in the front of the computer and grind it. It's not going to last too long. But
Yeah.
it's really hard once you don't we once you haven't made didn't made it yet. You feel like stressed, like, oh, yeah, I'm not worthy to take breaks, or I take breaks when I'm successful, but it's not that, like, it's not like that. You need to take breaks.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Like, I'm also starting to learn that there are a lot of skills in life that I have yet to master outside of game development. Like, for a long time, I was very focused on kind of mastering my game dev skills, and now I'm starting to realize that there are so many more things I have to master. And one of them, for example, is organizing my diet, right? Organizing my meals. That is a surprisingly difficult skill to master, like making sure nothing goes bad in your fridge, buying the correct things at the correct time so you don't have to run to the grocery store every single day, making sure you cook healthy stuff. Like, it's difficult. It's a very, very difficult skill to master.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Also, tried frozen pizza and frozen food and the usual, like, ramen noodles, the ones in. But I do not eat that anymore. But yeah, I mean, everyone goes through the same kind of stuff, and then like you feel bad, like the body feels bad, and then you start like to realize like, oh, I need this, and I need this, and I need more stuff than just grinding it out, because yeah, the body has a limit. Okay, let's take another question. So
Do you take days off? Yeah. I usually take days off on weekends, just like normal people. if I can. Sometimes it doesn't work out, especially when I'm editing a video. I'm usually like in super stress mode and wanting to finish it up quickly so I can get back into game development. But while working on games, I usually take weekends off.
That's great. Another question: what percentage of your livelihood would you attribute to alternative sources? Okay, so it was regarding the alternative sources of income that you have, so percentage based or it's
I think at least 95% comes from Islanders and then maybe another 5% from YouTube at the moment.
okay. Okay, but still, for example, you promoted the game through YouTube, so it
It's
I-
intertwined, but when Islanders came out, I think my channel was still very small. I can't remember if it was. Yeah, I think it was something between 1 and 10,000 subs, probably. So not a super massive YouTube channel, but yeah, obviously those are also sort of interconnected systems. True.
okay. Okay, let's get back to the questions. What would you do if you weren't a full-time game dev?
I would be a half-time game dev then.
For a Half-Life game dev?
Yeah, sure. I'd probably have another day job that would probably also be some IT thing or maybe something creative. I guess I could also work as a video editor or in some other design discipline. I think I would probably be able to fit in there as well.
Okay. Thoughts on AI in games?
Thoughts on AI in games? AI in general in game development will be a very interesting topic, I think, in the next decades. Especially, like, there are a couple of things I'm very excited about, especially AI generated voice acting. Like, I feel like, or I'm very positive that will get better and better because the proof of concept papers are already out there. You can generate very realistic sounding voices just from text. And I'm very excited to get those plugins in Unity. It will happen sometime. Not sure when, but it will happen. And then basically we don't need voice actors anymore. Yay!
Yeah, no, I've seen this couple of technology, and it's crazy, like what it can do right now,
Yeah.
and people can use it right now, so it's even much better.
Yeah, I guess we'll see more and more tools like that, and I'm very curious to see what we can do with it. Also, there are also tools for generating animations for like pretty much anything. So interesting times. And then of course AI in games. At the moment there are these machine learning approaches, but they don't really seem to work. Like, I don't know any game that successfully pulled that off, making actually interesting AI with machine learning in their games. But I guess we'll start seeing that in games as well sooner or later. Just a question of time.
Yeah, it might be that they get too much better, and it will deter players from playing the games. So that's
Yeah, I think that's not the issue yet, though. It's probably if you, as a game developer, if you have to decide between do I hard code this in like 20 minutes, or do I spend my next 2 months on training this AI and finding the perfect parameters to make it work?
yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Money wise. Okay, so another question: how do you keep motivated working on games for multiple years?
Oh yeah, that's a very good question as well, because a lot of people go through this constant cycle of restarting new projects, then excitedly working on it, then slowly losing motivation and starting a new project. And I did that for a very long time as well, till one day I just realized that I was stuck in a loop, and I kind of it was all of a sudden it was the other way around. I lost motivation to start over. And if you're stuck in a loop like that where you start new games all of the time, I would say keep doing what you're doing. Like as long as you're enjoying yourself, as long as you're having a good time, the day will come where you will lose the motivation to start a new project, and then it's time to finish one.
Yeah, but still, yeah, it's that new project, that new shiny project that awaits us by closing the current project is just so really hard. Especially probably, I like your I think it's bicycle animation. Like you're on this hill and you start like with a lot of hype to the project, and then like you move downhill, and then you struggle like really hard to push the final limit. And that's a lot of where a lot of people just just move to another project basically.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I feel like if you go down that hill a couple like 20 times, at some point you'll realize, or you'll get bored of that process, right? Restarting or starting a new project also always has these exciting, it kind of makes you excited to just start something new. I feel like that excitement wears off after a while, because in your mind at some point you start realizing, okay, if I start a new project now, that means I'll have to do that again, I'll fail just as much as I do with this project, I'll get stuck just as much as I do with this project. And once all of that starts sinking in, you won't feel the urge to restart as much. But I think people have to go through that process X amount of times. Maybe some people take longer to get there, some people don't. But I think I've started, like, I used to see this restarting process as a very negative thing. I think I see it more as a natural step in a game developer's journey now. I'm not sure if you should necessarily fight the urge to restart, or if you just should let it happen. It seems to be something very normal that happens to almost everybody, and it also seems to go away at some point for most developers if they keep going for long enough.
Yeah, makes sense. And I don't know, it's also this kind of thing. I mean, you worked a lot on a game, right? And you don't know if it's going to be successful or not, and that's kind of like one issue here. Like you need to somehow test it with the audience and see if they like it or not, or because if the game is not, I mean, in your head it's a perfect game ever, but for people nobody cares, then it's not worth it to continue, because when you're gonna sell it, nobody's gonna buy it. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I guess the textbook answer is do some market research before you get started. Like, if you want to be sure that people buy it, then you have to make some prototypes. When you get started, make some gameplay prototypes, but also make some visual prototypes, and then test both the gameplay prototypes if players actually like the gameplay of your game, and also test the visual prototypes of your game to see if people find it appealing, if they see it, if once they see it, if it's something they want to try. And the reason why it's so important to separate visual prototypes and gameplay prototypes is because if you combine them, you're basically making a finished game, and that takes too much time. So you want to do it faster and separate it. Do a gameplay prototype where you just have moving boxes that look super ugly and just represent gameplay, and do a separate visual prototype without any gameplay where you just smack in a couple of art assets and see how it looks. And that way you can test both things very, very quickly without having to make the finished game. And that's how you know if people like your finished game. That is the textbook answer I can give you, but I also didn't follow my own advice there for Will You Snail. And I hope I will follow that advice for my next game, but it's surprisingly hard to follow my own advice, because oftentimes I just also follow my heart and do what I want to do, and then I get a cool game idea and think, okay, let me try that out real quick, and suddenly it turns into a giant game project, like the way it happened with Will You Snail. But yeah, for maximizing your chances of success, prototype, test, do some market research on your competitors, what games are already out there, what are they doing well, what can you do better, that sort of stuff. And that way you can, I think, if you do that properly, you can make a very good decision on whether it's a good idea to follow a certain game idea or if it's not.
Okay, I think that's great advice, and yeah, but a lot of people go with their hearts, so it's really hard to balance.
That's fine as well. I'm just saying, if like your ultimate goal is just to make a successful game, that's what you should do. If you want to follow your heart and do what excites you in the moment, that's completely fine as well.
Yeah, and also 3 more pieces of advice here. So one, what can be the very beginning thing to start to become a game developer, considering that I don't have a game to make in mind, but I want to learn? So advice for beginning game developers mostly.
Make a lot of very small games. Game jams are great, but you can also make small games outside of game jams. Basically just make little one-day game projects, making a new game every single day. Finish those games, try to finish them as much as possible. That way you'll get a great idea of what it takes to finish a game. You'll learn all of the skills you need, because if you don't finish your game projects, you'll basically train some of your game development skills, but not all of them. That's why it's better to make small games, but to finish them, because that way you'll learn everything, and that will make scaling your projects up easier later on if you slowly start taking on more and more difficult projects. Like, one of the biggest mistakes I see new developers making is that they don't pick the correct challenges, right? In game development, there's sort of this theory that flow model, that things are only fun and engaging when your skill level matches the difficulty. Like, skill level and difficulty have to match. The higher your skill level, the higher the difficulty has to be. And the great thing about game development is you can choose the difficulty, right? By making either a less complicated or a more complicated game, you can scale the game development difficulty a lot. So you just, if you don't have a lot of game development skill, you also want to go with something that doesn't require as much, or that doesn't have as much difficulty. That way it stays fun, and you stay in that flow model where making games stays fun. And it's very important to keep making games fun, because if it's not fun, you'll likely not keep doing it.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Make sure that it stays fun, and you can do that by picking the correct challenges at the correct time.
Okay. Next one. Any recommendations for game developers with smaller YouTube channels?
Welcome to YouTube. Keep at it. Try to. YouTube is a lot about just the quality of your videos. Try to keep improving. Like, the growth on YouTube usually is very exponential, but it's also very roller coaster like. So it keeps going up and down. Don't look at the numbers too much, but still look at them enough to get an idea. So don't look at the numbers to see if you're doing well. Look at the numbers to see what you could do better. So look at the retention graph of your videos and stuff like that. Look at the click-through rate of your thumbnails, but don't worry too much on how much your channel is growing, because you can drive yourself pretty crazy with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just focus on making better videos, I would say, is the most important thing.
Yeah, makes sense.
And obviously, a key thing to making better videos is also making more videos, because that will give you more practice and experience.
And also maybe entertaining videos compared to, like, I don't know, tutorials, or because yes, some people might think that they're boring or not fun to watch.
Yeah, well, I guess my most successful video is a tutorial, though. So both can work. It's more about knowing the purpose of your video, I guess. So the purpose could be entertainment, could also be information. So you need to know the purpose of your videos, and you need to fulfill that purpose as best as you can.
Okay. Next question. If I put my game on Kickstarter, how can I make it successful?
asking the wrong person because I've never ran a Kickstarter before.
Okay.
I would, from my intuition, I would say almost the same marketing rules apply as on Steam and any other platform. Appeal is king, and appeal is a combination of your art style and the fantasy of your game, and bonus points if the art style of your game communicates the fantasy of the game. So art style is everything from colors to shapes, design, and then the fantasy of your game is basically what you do in the game, the verbs of the game, or what it lets the player imagine. Like, are you a knight? Are you a ninja? And is that fantasy something people would actually like to do if there were no negative consequences attached to them? Because that is exactly what games do. They let you experience something without any danger, without any risk, without any negative consequences attached to them. So that's basically the value proposition a game gives, right? For the case of Will You Snail, it gives you the value proposition of or the fantasy of being chased by an evil AI in a simulated computer maze where spikes come out of all walls. And that is something most people would not like to do in real life. But if there's no danger attached to it and there are no real negative consequences, then it can be an actually appealing fantasy for some people to have these interactions with an evil AI. And yeah, if you can also communicate that fantasy in your art style, that gives extra points, because then you don't have to explain the fantasy. And nobody likes reading, and that's why it's important for your screenshots to just communicate the fantasy. If somebody looks at the screenshot of your game and can instantly see the fantasy you're going at, that is the best thing you can do. And then if it also looks nice, then you have an appealing game. And with an appealing game, you really can't fail in marketing. And you'll also win on Kickstarter.
Yeah, but there's actually one game that has consequences. It's called Sword Art Online. If you die in that game, you die in real life.
Yeah, maybe there's some thrill to that as well.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine like Sword Art Online being real, and like people actually, if they die in the game, dying in the real life. I mean, would people accept the challenge? Probably some would. Some would say, yeah, it's similar to like doing extreme sports. Like there's a risk of dying or like getting incapacitated. So people still do it.
Yeah. Somebody's writing in the chat, being a snail is a great fantasy. Yeah, I'm not sure if I nailed all of this appeal thing with Will You Snail, like both art style as well as fantasy in Will You Snail. There's still room for improvement. I'm just giving you what I think are the textbook answers, and we're all learning together here. Like I've made mistakes as well, for sure.
Yeah, but it's funny. The comment comes from Play First of all. They're a partner for the jam, and they have a game where you're a cat, the cat fantasy that's a demon cat, and you're experiencing hell in a funny way, but it's still tormenting.
Interesting fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but these weird things sometimes they get you as well, because you don't get to do these weird things in real life. So actually, weird things are a real value proposition as well for games.
Yeah, I feel like that's the way. Okay, let's see. Next question. If YouTube would stop working, let's say tomorrow, how would you reach your community?
I would still have Discord, I guess, and I would probably, I would also still have Twitter, and I would probably try switching to TikTok then, because I like making video content. And at the moment, I'm not super active on TikTok because it's hard for me to focus on two platforms at once. Like I'm juggling game development and YouTube. That's already pretty tough to do. Taking on another platform, that sounds like a bit of a stretch at the moment. But yeah, there are other platforms I guess I would focus on then, because I believe in content marketing.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I really also like like having this skill of creating videos. I think it's really good, and a lot of people aspire to be content creators more than game developers. It seems these days. I mean, like also live streamers and other areas, not only development. Another question from the new gaming chair. How do you stop the scope creep?
Set yourself a deadline, announce the release date publicly early on. There you go. Yeah, that's the solution. The only other solution is a crazy amount of self-discipline and self-awareness. Another solution can be working in a team where you have somebody in your team that has the discipline to keep scope creep under control. Like if you certain people in your team can fulfill that role of a vision keeper and limiting scope creep. Yeah, that's all the solutions I have. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's difficult. I mean, it's so difficult to just like say, oh, this one more feature. Yeah,
For sure.
one.
Will you snail had a lot of scope creep. I mean, sometimes scope creep can be a good thing, but most of the time it's not.
Okay. So Sasi says, if a funny game about being trapped in an oscilloscope display existed, would you play it?
That sounds very trippy. Thing with these game ideas is you could still turn like this little sentence, you could turn that into so many different games. Like this doesn't tell me anything about gameplay, this doesn't tell me anything about the fantasy, this doesn't tell me, like the only thing this tells me something about is the art style. Like I imagine it as a very trippy, colorful game. If I'm not messing up what an oscilloscope is, let me Google that real quick. Oh, wait a second.
It's how the first Pong game was implemented. It's like a way to display electric signals.
Okay, so it's some okay.
display.
I had something different in mind, so it's not
but
what I had in mind. But this same things still apply.
It's still regarding the artwork.
You could still turn that into so many different things. Like sounds kind of unspecific.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Yeah.
Would you recommend copying systems from other games to learn?
Yeah, once again depends a lot on what you enjoy doing. If you think you'll get something out of that, sure, do it. I personally don't enjoy doing that, which is why I don't do it. But I guess there's, like, for example, if you really want to replicate the precise movement of something, there's a lot to learn from replication. Like, what did you learn from replicating the Will You Snail movement? Was there anything you learned?
I think I mean I knew some tricks already from actually a really good book that I forgot the name, unfortunately, but it's how to make your games fun to play. So there is this game design book, and kind of like how exactly the movement happens. Of course, I haven't tried the original one, but I try to think about it to be snappy in a way, but also to feel nice to play. And adding all of these small things and the particle effects and the double jump and they contribute to like how the movement feels. So yeah, it's really important to research this game feel, because otherwise, yeah, the game feels boring, or people say like, oh, the controls feel floaty, and I didn't want the controls to feel floaty in any way.
So one thing I would say is I think it's definitely important that as a game developer you get in touch with other games. Like maybe you don't have to reconstruct other movement systems or have to replicate mechanics from other games, but if you're not doing that, then at the very least you should play a new game every once in a while just to sort of get a comparison. How do they get their game feel? For example, I started playing Ori and the Blind Forest recently, and they do so many things for game feel that really gave me a lot of great ideas for Will You Snail as well. I'm almost eager to make Will You Snail 2 just to just to improve on all of the things I've learned from playing Ori. So yeah, it's important to get in touch with other games and to have a close look at what they're doing. And if you don't understand how they made it, then I think it probably makes sense to replicate it. Most of the time, when I see a mechanic in Ori, then I more or less know or have a rough idea how you do that in Unity. So most of the time, I don't feel the need to replicate that. But yeah, I think I can kind of see how where that previous question was coming from now.
Yeah. And speaking of like playing Ori, what do you think about platformer games in general? Because I hear a lot like this genre is oversaturated with games, and you're about to release a platformer game. What is your thought about this? Do you think they're oversaturated? Do you think people can still make them?
Well, I did some research on Steam recently and saw how many great platformers I could find, and I couldn't find that many. Like there were maybe 10, 20 really memorable ones that I was like, yeah, that's sort of a must play, something everybody knows, like Super Meat Boy, Ori, Shovel Knight. But even all of those combined, there weren't that many. And I wonder if that's only because I did poor research, or if it's because Steam doesn't surface any other games. Like maybe there are literally thousands and millions of platformers out there on Steam, and Steam just simply doesn't show them. That could very well be the case. But in any case, what I think I realized was that there's still room for a really good platformer, especially if you're doing something different. It can still fit into that raster on Steam. I think if it's different enough, like there's still room. Like Steam can promote more than 15 platformer games. That should be doable.
Okay, so you think to have success, it's still to release on Steam? Because you
there are many ways to succeed on Steam, but to succeed, like Steam is not the only one. Yeah, it's a very difficult question because I don't have any good data. Like all I can say about it are random assumptions. And I think people who say that the genre is oversaturated, they have a point, because I do see a lot of indie developers developing platformer games, and a lot of them they don't succeed unfortunately, from what I can tell, even if they're pretty good. Like I've followed a couple of platformer games on Twitter that looked very, very promising and then completely disappeared when they launched. So that happens, but I don't have any data how much it happens with different game genres, unfortunately.
But your next game is gonna be a platformer, or you don't know yet?
If my next game is a platformer, it will be Will You Snail. Like it will be a sequel or prequel to Will You Snail. But other than that, I'm not interested in making another platformer, because I think your chances of success do increase when you don't make a platformer. If you want a few very simple tips to increase your chances of success, don't make a platformer. Make a game without violence. And those are the only two things you need to do to stand out. If you do those two things, you're already different to 99% of games out there.
Oh, but violence. Violence, like yeah, I mean, violence means like shooters, GTA. Yeah, you kind of remove like a lot of possibilities there.
Yeah, and obviously you can still succeed with platformers. Obviously you can still succeed with violent games. I'm just saying, in my experience, those are, if you do those, somebody's asking in chat why no violence. The reason I'm not saying you can't make games with violence. That is completely fine. All I'm saying is that if you make a game without violence, you have a very strong selling point right out of the gate, because a lot of people are looking for non-violent, chill games they can just enjoy in their spare time. And the demand for violent games is way lower than the amount of violent games. So by making a non-violent game, it's easier to fall into a niche and find an audience. Like that's sort of one thing we saw with Islanders. It's another thing we saw with our friends at Tucana who made damn it, how's their game called? Let me look in my games folder. I have it installed.
Yeah. But also.
Oh, it's so embarrassing when I forget things like that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Dorfromantik. Yeah, of course, Dorfromantik.
Okay.
And in general, you see non-violent games that are just chill and have a good time sort of games. They tend to do pretty well because there are so many there are so many violent games out there. So you don't have to make a non-violent, non-platformer game, but it does make it easier to stand out.
Yeah. Also, probably you heard of the game, the Journey, the games from that game company. They call these types of games the core games, like between soft games and hardcore games. Like you have core games and you have this kind of interesting interactions, and it gives you a nice feel. And also The Witness. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the art style of The Witness. You just
then there's also Portal. Like there are plenty of examples.
Portal is with violence.
Yeah, okay, true. It has
robot violence.
I guess you could say that, yeah.
And the AI kind of harasses you.
But in Portal, you don't go shoot things. You don't go slash things into pieces. Like it's a different kind of violence, at least.
Yeah. By the way, New Gaming Chair was asking if you are selling the gaming toaster.
No.
Damn it. We could have right now.
I'm not selling the gaming toaster. I want to use it. I want to use it for a few more videos at least before I do.
Then you can put it on eBay or something and like have an auction.
Yeah, maybe. And then people will realize that it doesn't work nearly as well as it looks in the video. No, just kidding. It works fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really interesting, like the game too, and it's really interesting that it has also a display there, so you can actually see what you're playing.
No, it works just fine. It's just some of the sliders and knobs are a little hard to move.
Yeah, but it's quite an interesting idea. And after the banana controller, the toaster controller is next. I wonder what is next from the game developers out there. Okay.
We'll
Another question. Let's see what else was here, because I think there was another one. Yeah, there are a lot of questions, and I tried to. Oh yeah, I think I missed this one. How do you cope with doubt? Have you ever had the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, sure. Every time somebody says, how does it feel once you've made it on YouTube? How does it feel once you've made it as an indie developer? How does it feel to live the indie dream? So basically, the moment you asked that question earlier, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome right away. And that's why I also replied with, it never really feels like you completely made it. Like it always feels like things could still go south, and yeah. Yeah, but I'm obviously very grateful for everything I have, and I know that I've come a long way, so
yeah,
gotta say that as well. Yeah,
but I mean, if you start like this type of career that you started, like if you put in the work and also you adjust the strategy, because it's not just work in one direction, technically at a certain point you should succeed. So statistically speaking, you should succeed if you put in the hours and you adjust the strategy based on the analytics and based on the market. Because the only way to fail is to quit, not to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, the truth is, I think it's also quite a bit of luck, but the luck is not where people think it is. Like, the luck is not, does your game succeed or does it not succeed? That is not based on luck, at least not as much. The luck really just comes in your, basically in your starting position. Like, who are your parents? Like, do you have the freedom to really go after your dreams? That is where luck plays a big role. And yeah, everybody's in a different situation there. And I was very, very lucky in terms of my in terms of my starting position. Like
Yeah.
I had very supportive parents. I live in a country where it's easy to do game development, stuff like that. So I also was very lucky. But I guess if you stick with it long enough, obviously the chances of success rise quite dramatically. So yeah, I would agree to that.
Yeah.
In combination with a bit of luck.
Yeah.
Like
Like the place where, like, some countries do have like offer you different possibilities, and being in a family that supports you is really important, because having kind of like this different mindset than not like having a regular job, for most people it's really hard to understand, like for your friends, for your family, and they say, why not just get like a job? And you say, no, this is a job, but I'm the owner and the boss, and say, yeah, just get a real job. It's really hard to convince people, like, no, this is a real job. And yeah.
yeah. Yeah, also not all parents like the idea of their children becoming full-time indie game developers. And probably, to be honest, not without reason either. Like, it is very risky. Yeah, but situations are very different, and life is not fair, unfortunately.
Yeah, probably not everyone can succeed, but if you make sure that you put in your best, your chances will get higher. Because yeah, a lot of people just quit before maybe just the next couple of releases, and it's going to be a success. But
that's why it's even more important to not do it for the money and just do it because if you enjoy making games. But because there is always a little, like, that small chance that it will never work out, right? Like, statistically speaking, those people have to exist that kind of try becoming a game developer all life long but never succeed. Like, it's makes me very sad to think about that. But yeah, I guess I guess it happens. So at the very least, do make sure that you get a good time out of it. I feel like that is, I keep repeating that over and over again. It's very important.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's kind of a journey, I would say, and for most people, it's fulfilling. I mean, not a lot of things that you do, for example, if you do a website or you do something, they're not like really fun in the end. They just do it for a job. But making a game that you want to make, and even as an employee, some companies do allow a lot of flexibility and for you to contribute into making those games. So it's not like if you don't succeed on in the game development, you can still go to a lot of different companies and still have the creative freedom to express yourself, because that's the problem. Like, you need the creative freedom. As you said earlier, probably you're still working like the creative industries. You don't want to like assemble cars like for BMW. Or
success is a strange word anyway, so who knows what that even means.
Yeah. Okay, another question. Is there some groundwork that helps to improve the starting point, like doing a lot of game jams or YouTube tutorials?
Yeah, thing is, the more you do something, the better you get at it. So if you want to get better at game development, you need to make a lot of games, and you should finish a lot of games, because as I've said earlier, if you finish your games, that will allow you to train your entire game development skill sets, the entire palette. And if you don't finish them, you'll only train a section of your game development skills. So make small games, finish them. And if you have the goal of making commercially successful games, then you should spend some extra attention on the skill of creating appeal, very important, and marketing.
Yeah. And regarding the marketing, because people think that as marketing, you need to have something and then you start marketing. But in a lot of cases, to have success, you need to do marketing before you even start the game, kind of. What is your advice regarding the marketing of a game?
There are two different strategies, or at least two different strategies that come to my mind, and both can work. One strategy is you actually do start marketing when your game releases. That is exactly what we did with Islanders. We didn't tell anybody about the game. We didn't make it public at all. And then 3 weeks before the game came out, we published the first trailer, had like a 3-week mini marketing campaign, and that was enough to make the game succeed, luckily. So that can work just fine. And the reason it worked with Islanders was because Islanders was a very appealing game. Like it has a lot of appeal, and I'm not even taking credit for that. That is entirely the fault of my teammates. Like Friedemann made absolutely fantastic art for it. It looks absolutely beautiful, and also the art style communicates the fantasy of the game. The fantasy of the game is building a tiny city on an island. So that's why the marketing for Islanders worked, and we started marketing 3 weeks before launch. And the other strategy you can do is that long-term strategy that doesn't necessarily require you to have a super appealing game already. Even though some studios do it that way, they develop the art style at the very beginning, so they have something appealing to show right from the get-go. That can also make sense. But the other strategy, the long-term strategy, is more about, I guess, content marketing, keeping your audience engaged, providing value to them, making friends online, building a viewership, and then eventually when you release your game, they'll probably more buy it because they like you than because they like the game. That is the other strategy you can do.
Yeah. No, it's good, but still, yeah, I'm yeah. If it works, but I mean, you can open a Patreon or something if people just like you and want to support you. But yeah, they can buy your game as well.
I'm not sure if Patreon and buying a game is necessarily. I'm not sure if you can directly compare that, but yeah, it's an interesting thought. But why not both?
Yeah, no, I meant like if you make a game and people buy the game just because they like you and they don't play the game.
Yeah, no, obviously that's not the case either. Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe that was a little bit of a silly thing to say, but the reason they buy the game is because not only because they like you, they also like the game, but they like the game because you've shown it to them like
how
10,
it's supposed
15
to be,
times. They are invested in the journey. They know how it was built. They know the struggles you went through to create it, and that's why they feel attached and connected to the game and want to try it out. And if you want people to play the game without that, then the only way to do that is by making an appealing game. But both can work.
Okay, makes sense. What game school course? What? Wait a second, Jonas. What was your game school's course like?
What was your game school's course like? It was awesome. Well, like Islanders was made as a university project. I studied game design at HEW Berlin. I'm not sure. I think they rebranded to D Hive or something like that. I'm always a little confused about that, but it was very nice because it was very project oriented. We had a lot of time to just team up in small teams and make good stuff with good equipment. with good coaching and pretty much everything you need to make a good game. So that is like one of the things where I would say I was very lucky. Just perfect starting conditions, and yeah, I definitely have to thank Game School for that for sure.
Okay, and
Was great.
you recommend people retract
Yep.
their messages. I was almost wanted to read that message, and now it's message retracted.
Now it's gone.
No, it was referring to like what's getting stuck like after finishing a prototype, and then because Noam Stein, I think probably it's Stein, not knowing how to make the characters. So yeah, it's also like a thing like once you do a project, once you work on a project, and you get stuck not knowing what to do next. Probably you have been through these kind of situations. What would be your approach?
I have a very, I would say the best way to go about it is a very analytical approach. That means you have to figure out what the problem is before you can find a solution. And I'm surprised that a lot of people don't seem to really do that step. They're stuck and they're like, what do I do now? No, you have to figure, at the very least, the very least you should do is figuring out why you are stuck and what you are stuck on. What is the real problem you're struggling with? And then once you've defined that problem, then you can get up, take a break, go for a run, take a shower, go for a walk in the forest. And then usually our brain is very good at figuring out problems once they're properly defined. The only way it can't work is if you don't know the problem. But if you know the problem, very likely you'll figure out a solution.
So you're on the right track, figuring out the problem first, and then seeing the next steps. Okay, so Jan says, Jonas, why not weird noises yet?
There you
go. By the way, do you edit those, or if when you do them in your video, or those are just like unedited, or both?
Are there ever strange noises in my videos? Like, what do you mean?
No. No. And strange effects, but the effects, yeah, it's clear. Like
yeah, I have a little bit of a nonsense humor, I would say. Like I like random nonsense. That's true.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do like one more question or something, either from you or from chat, whatever presents itself.
Yeah, let's do the final question. So if there's no one from the chat, then I might go with one because I have an idea. I mean, like it's oh yeah, I finished water. I still have some water left. But yeah, the final question regarding yeah, Godot, because we're at Godot Jam. What do you think? Like, would Godot need as a game engine to become like mainstream, like really big?
Very hard for me to answer because I've used Godot so little. But there's one thing I think: if an engine manages to master online multiplayer in a way where it's easily accessible and very easy to implement, I think that would instantly turn the engine into a big hit. If you can find a way to make online multiplayer happen easily in any game jam, I think that engine would have very good chances.
Yeah, but there's this core engine that does this, and yeah, a lot.
Yeah, I've tried core. I'm not entirely convinced yet. Well, what are your thoughts about core?
I mean, like once you know the stuff, I think it's just limits. So I wouldn't go back to something like that. I would go further, like to something much that allows me to express myself properly. But core is very limited. It's good for beginning, but once you know more stuff, programming, for example, then it heavily limits you.
Yeah, by the way, I think something like core will be the future of game development. Like there will be, I'm not sure if it will be core, maybe it will be, but something like core will be what everybody's using in 15 years. maybe even 10. We'll see.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Then I guess that was the last question. Okay. Do you, Jonas, want to say something to the audience and to me?
Wishlist will you snail on Steam right now.
By the way, I have put the link in the description.
Yeah, that is very nice. Thank you. No, not really. Yeah, check out my videos. Thanks for listening. Thanks a lot for inviting me. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to me ramble about stuff I don't know anything about and pretending I know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Okay.
hope you had a good time.
Okay, cool. Then, yeah, let me wrap up the stream. So, everyone, thank you for joining and see you in the next one. Bye. Okay.